So I'm back at it tonight. I ended up getting all these parts blasted and painted. I think they turned out really well. I like this satin. It's actually this low gloss engine enamel that I buy just from, I think I get it from O'Reilly's or whatever. Lays on incredibly smooth, and it looks really well. And it wears really well too. It doesn't like brake cleaner, so you got to keep brake cleaner away from it. That is. But anyway, this is the brake booster assembly, the stock assembly. So I took it all apart, cleaned it all up. I'm going to put it all back together and re-grease everything and mount it back in the truck tonight. And then with the mass air sensor, I got my coupler in, and I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put my coupler, just get rid of the straight coupler and put my mass sensor right here. Because if I do that, my coupler goes back actually to where my cut line was. So this would be my new cut line here. So I can make a bracket that goes just this way and boom, right to here. No problem. I can hide it underneath here. That way I don't have, because it was driving me nuts that I was going to have 3 couplers, one here, here, and here, all right in this little area. And I just didn't like that. Didn't like the idea of that. So I'm actually going to wait for, I've got my my AN fittings here, my 90-degree fitting here. Coming from the transmission lines. It'll actually be here, today's Tuesday, so it'll be here Thursday, I think. So I can make sure this clearance, if I need to clearance this a little bit, I might too. So just want to wait and make sure when those, make sure those fittings get here so everything fits well. So I'm not going to mess with this tonight. My hydraulic crimper came in for all of the power lines, so I might mess with those tonight too. We'll just kind of see how long it takes to put this together. And just kind of go from there. So it's actually, just a weeknight, put the kids to bed, so I'm out here just fiddling around for a little bit. I got some, actually ended up buying this. I don't know if I mentioned this in another video. We had our local nuts and bolts Ace Hardware went out of business, or is going out of business, and I bought this whole box of, 5/16 fuel line. I think it's fuel injection line anyway. It doesn't say on there, but for $10. So I'm going to make a steam vent line here. There's kind of some odds and ends. That's really it. So I was actually finally pulled the trigger and ordered all the stuff for the fuel lines and the transmission lines. So like I say, they're on their way, so we can get that done. And it's just kind of just stuff to get it done now. Just all the piddly stuff's left. The one main thing that I conveniently forgot about is I have the exhaust. And what I'm going to do here is, excuse my mess, it's kind of a dump in here right now, but this is the exhaust that was on the truck when I bought it. It's just got some Flowmasters. I'm not even sure what series they are. They're Series Loud. So whatever that is in Flowmaster. They went up and over and straight out the back, Texas style, with the big giant tips on them. And I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is try to piece this together underneath the truck. And I'm going to get it to go back as far as I can. I'm going to put an X-pipe on it because this didn't have an X-pipe. Sounded like an old hot rod with that. I don't like that. I want it to be a little more uniform. So I'm going to put an X-pipe on it and just see how far I can get it out. I don't know if it's going to go over the axles or not. I don't know if it's actually going to fit over the axles or not, because the way the suspension is and the way my brake lines are, it might be a tough fit. So, but that's for a project coming up here pretty quick once I get all this other stuff done here. But anyway, I'm going to quit rambling, and I am going to get to work on putting this thing here back together. So the bracket's in. This thing actually went together no problem. I greased all of the joints, all the pins, bolted everything down, torqued it all down. Everything went together perfect. Now, the steering column, on the other hand, I did drop it so that I could set my brake switch in there so that I could have the right pedal travel for the torque converter release and for the brake lights. And trying to put this steering wheel back in by myself with a bracket, that strap that goes on across the bottom that is slightly bent, a lot of 4-letter words came out. I don't particularly get mad when doing these things, but I was not happy. So I got in. Everything worked out perfect. One thing that bothers me, and excuse me, I'll show that maybe later this week because I'm getting out of here. I'm tired. Is the steering wheel. I know these trucks weren't built exact perfect, but the steering column comes out of the gauge cluster slightly off center, and it kind of drives my OCD nuts. So I'm going to see if I can't figure something out in there to maybe shim the steering wheel over, the whole column over a little bit so it comes out, but I can show that next time. But I got the bracket all put back together. It's pretty simple little deal here. So it's got a push rod that comes through here, through the firewall, a pivot pin down here in the bottom. What it does is it basically you're increasing your force, your pedal force by well, not pedal force, but pedal travel So your pivot point's down here, your push rod for your pedals here, and your push rod for your boosters here. So you're just increasing your travel. That's all this mechanism does. And cleaned up, actually, it doesn't look half bad. I know a lot of guys think these things look terrible, but I didn't put the bracket back on. It actually had 2 extra brackets. It had a bracket that came from down here up to here, and then it had one come from way over here. Well, there it is. Way over here to out there, and I'm not putting either one of those back on just because I don't know why they were there. This thing's a tank. It's not going to go anywhere. I mean, I guess if you just stood on the brakes, I suppose the firewall might flex a little bit, but I think that'd be the least of your problems if you're standing on the brakes that hard. But anyway, so it's in. I'm going to get a clip here and mount this. There's an extra hole in the valve cover right here, so I'm going to kind of clamp that right there, make that hose go down and look nice and pretty, go back into the manifold. So that's projects for the next days. But I've just been checking things off my list. So now steering column, everything is back in, so I can put the seat back in officially, and it is done interior-wise. I'm going to crimp these wires next time, so that's the last thing I need to do on the top side before and those hoses over there. Before I can put it on the lift and start doing the stuff on the bottom, I'm going to put all the brake lines back in, flush them out, build the exhaust, just all that stuff that needs to be done. So anyway, I'm going to pick up here in a couple days, and we will see what we can get done then. So it's been a couple days. I ended up just taking the rest of the week off. It was my birthday was last week, so I took some time off. I did work on the truck a little bit here on lunches and whatnot. So I was able to get my heater lines in, my steam vent is attached and plumbed. Got this trick little spacer. Actually, I got all my fuel lines and transmission lines and all of that on an order. It all came in from Summit with all that. Ended up buying this trick little aluminum spacer here to kind of keep those lines in check so they're not just flopping around. Also got the mass airflow meter cut in. Ended up just using it as the splice instead of having a coupler, the MAF sensor, and another coupler. I went ahead and just put it here and used it as the splice. Works out perfect. So today's task is going to be making a bracket that attaches to the factory fan shroud mounting here. So I'm going to run a bracket from here over to here, get that all situated. Once that's done, I can do some body work on the bracket, do some body work on the pipes, get these where they were holding them in when they were bending them around the mandrel. Everything's smoothed out. I'm going to put some paint on it, get these fenders back out. I'm just going to start tidying things up, getting the fuel lines. I think that's my goal today, is to get fuel lines started at least, or trans lines. So I got all those in. They're all upstairs. I've not brought them down yet. But yeah, so today we're just going to keep on plugging away. We're on the downhill slide, just kind of get some stuff wrapped up, and we'll see how far we can get. Here's what I came up with. Just a simple bracket. It's 1 inch wide. I don't know how long it is, but with 2 bends in it. Basically what it does, it just goes from there to there. And so what I'll do is I'll probably just, I might actually cut this down because I don't think I think that's 1 3/4 inches. I don't think I need that much because all I'm going to do is just basically tack it. It isn't going to go. I mean, it's not going to be a full weld or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that long. It's easier to bend long and cut it down, because if you try to bend a short lip, it is a pain in the rump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trace this out on some steel, cut it out on the bandsaw, and throw a couple bends in it. And I'll probably end up using one of these clamps to hold it down on there tight. And we'll kind of go from there. Here's what I came up with. It's not the prettiest thing, but it works. It's a function over form kind of deal, or however that saying goes. But it worked out really well. So it tags onto this bracket here. Comes over. Right now the clamp's just holding on in place, but I'm going to go ahead and weld it on real quick. And then once it's welded on, I'll be able to pound this down a little bit to form with the contour of the round metal here, so that it won't have this. You really probably can't see that on the camera, but there is a bit of a gap there. So I'll pound that down. Then when it's all done, I'll sand it all smooth, put some glazing putty on it, clean this whole thing up, and you'll never even be able to tell it's welded on there. It just looks like it's part of it. So it worked out pretty easy peasy. So I'm going to go ahead and take this apart and weld it on here real quick, and then we're going to move on to other stuff. Wouldn't you know, I ran out of welding wire. So I got this tacked on here and cleaned up the welds a little bit. I am going to go ahead and probably stitch this whole thing, just because this is 10 gauge steel, but it still has a little bit of flex to it, which is okay, because I don't want it to be rigid to the, completely rigid to the radiator mount and to the throttle body there. So I want a little bit of flexibility, because the motor's going to move and everything, chassis is going to tweak and everything. So, but it turned out really well. I'm really happy with it. So it's good and rigid. It's not I mean, if you shake it, you can kind of see that it moves, but you know, it's going to do that because it's a single plate. I thought about maybe putting a gusset down on the bottom down here, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to, we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and start working on some other stuff. I think I'm actually going to work on this wire right here that goes to the alternator. I got my crimper, so I'm going to go ahead and set up for that and get going to go with that. Okay, so here is the crimper that I bought. I actually bought this on Amazon. There was a fellow YouTuber had shown this crimper in one of his videos, so I thought I'd give it a shot. I'll put a link in the description below here. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. But I think it was like 29 bucks, something like that. I don't know. But the way he had it is I actually have these two. These are AN jaws that are in my vise here, and you just kind of clamp it in there just so you don't have to have three hands doing it. So basically what it does is just crimps these lugs on the end of wire. And this wire looks huge, but it's really not. It's only got the... it's an SGX covering on it, so it's not really, it's got a huge cover on it, but it's just a 6-gauge wire. So basically how this works is there's just like a little hydraulic ram in there. Let me get this run up there. Get this in there square, or as square as you can get. And you just put the wire in there. There's not much to it. So, the one thing that I have found that is really strange is this thing's set up for metric wire gauges. So these are, 16 or I'm not sure what that is, but so they actually have a conversion chart in the instructions, but the 16 is for a 6-gauge wire, but it's actually a little loose here. So what I've done is I just take the dies for the 8-gauge, put them in here, and just give it just a little extra crimp here, just to make it a little tighter, because it was a little loose with the just the 8-gauge dies. So, and that's it. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's on there. So all that's left here is to figure out where there it is, where my heat shrink went. Take a heat gun. Put your heat shrink on there. So this is actually a 3-to-1 heat shrink adhesive line. So it's actually got some adhesive inside of it, which is nice because it seals to the wire. It's not like, it's super critical that it seals because your terminal is wide open, but just makes a real nice connection. It kind of adds a little bit of structural rigidity to the splice. So, and that's it. Well, after farting around with this forever, I finally got all the wiring done for the alternator and for my fuse panel up here that runs the fans, the fuel pump, and the headlights. So I've got my wire coming over. This is the 6-gauge wire coming over from the alternator. It comes up and it's going to come underneath the frame rail down there. It's going to pop up right here. It's going to go into the 200 amp mega fuse that goes straight up to the battery. So this comes out here and goes to the battery. And then I've also got a 100 amp breaker down here that feeds my sub panel up here. So these two wires right up here are actually going to go up. I'm going to cut them to length once I get the battery, which hopefully this week the battery will come in. So it worked out really well. So everything's kind of hidden underneath the battery tray and behind the battery tray. So this fuse is accessible when the fender liner's in. And this here, you can just kind of reach your hand around and flip it back. Like right now, it's tripped, so you can get to it really easy, which is nice. And the cool thing about this thing is it's kind of a theft deterrent too, because if you're at a car show or whatever, you just pop the fuse and this thing will crank and crank and crank and crank and crank and it'll never start. So that's kind of neat. So other than that, everything is wrapped up here except for those two connections right there, and I will do those once I get the battery in. But it's been a pretty productive day. This is done here. Actually, well, I got to put a couple more tacks on there and do some body work. But got a lot done. So didn't get to the fuel lines, unfortunately. The wiring took a little longer. I tried to figure out where to put everything. But we're making progress. So I'm going to try to get up here one night this week. And when the battery comes in, and I will get those lined out. I still need to measure for my battery cables. I keep forgetting to do that. I've got the old ones actually laying out down here. So I need to order those and get those here so I can hook those up. I need to hook up the vacuum line to the booster. I was kind of playing around with some routing there. But other than that, to get this thing to fire, all I need to do is trans lines and fuel lines. Well, and obviously the drive shaft, but that's a project that's coming once I get it over the lift. So just that's it, you know. So we are really close. But anyway, I appreciate everybody watching. Please like and subscribe if you like to. I checked earlier this morning, and I'm almost at 600, which is crazy. I can't believe there's 600 people that are interested in this. But please share it. Please tell everybody about it. I'd love to hear from everybody. Please comment. Just really anything. So I just like talking to everybody. But anyway, that's it for today. I appreciate everybody watching, and we will see you next time.